Alright, so this is video 2 for properties. And so in this video we're going to do distributive property and identity property. So the first one we're going to do is distributive property. And so for distributive property, it's mainly just going to be the distributive property, you'll sometimes call it multiplication over addition and multiplication over subtraction. So it just, but what it's saying is that if I have a number times the sum of another number, I have two other numbers, it's the same thing as multiplying a times b plus a times c, and we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but that's all it is. And for your distributive property, it just means that I'm going to distribute the a to each term inside of there. So remember, I've called it distributive, hippity hoppity distributive property, because it goes hippity hoppity distributive property. So, and that's a lot of times you'll hear me say, did you leave off the hoppity? Did you do the hoppity? You know, hippity hoppity, because we have to do a hippity and a hoppity when we do with 1 over 2 like that. And so for an example, say I had 4 times 3x plus 7. Well, that would be the same thing as 4 times 3x, because it's times this whole term. So 4 times 3x plus 4 times 7. Well, then 4 times 3x, that is 12x, plus 4 times 7 is 28. And so I really kind of go through an additional step there because I have to get rid of all my parentheses. But that's how we're going to do that multiplication. Okay? And so by definition, what we're going to say is multiplying a term, because it could be more than just a number, multiplying a term by a sum is the same as multiplying, sorry, I can't seem to write right now, the term by each addend. So all that means is each number that's inside those parentheses, and then finding the sum. Okay? So multiplying a term by a sum, so that's what we're doing when we do this here. We're multiplying a term by the sum is the same thing as multiplying the term by each addend here and then adding them together. Okay, finding the sum. So that's how we do distributive property. Now when we do the identity property, we again have one for addition and one for multiplication. And so identity, that's kind of who you are, right? That's mean, so even though you may change your clothes, you're still the same person. Okay? And so in algebra, the way we would look at it for addition, it would be a plus, well, what do I add to a number that doesn't change it? Well, add 0, right? So a plus 0 is a. Because if I had, say, 2 plus 0, well, that's 2. So if I have 3a plus 0, I still get 3a. For multiplication, it would be times what? What do I take times a number so that I don't change the number? So I take b times 1 is still equal to b. And so sometimes you'll see it written as 1b is equal to b, and so that's all that it means. So if I multiply by 1, I don't change anything. Well, that 1 can even take on, it can look funny, right? Because remember, fractions, if I have the same numerator and denominator, then it's equal to 1. So if I have 5 times 1, that's still equal to 5. Even if I were to take this and write it as 5 times 3 over 3, because that's still a 1, Then when I multiply my fraction there, I've got like a 5 over 1 times 3 over 3. I end up with 15 over 3, which when I divide that out is still 5. So even though I change, this is still just a great big 1 right there. That's all it is. That's just a great big 1 right there. And so even though when I multiply by 1, I'm not changing the number. It still would simplify out to the same thing. It's just that sometimes we need that 5 to look like this 15 over 3 so we can do something with it. So that's kind of what we'll do. And it could be, instead of 5, it could be like 3a or 3b or something like that. So then our definition, adding 0 to a number gives the same number. I'm going to use the number sign there. Okay? And then multiplying I'm just going to write over my finger there because you have room. Multiplying by 1 gives the same number. Okay? So that is our identity property. That's what it would do. And I could even add or subtract 0. I could look at either adding or subtracting 0 and multiplying or dividing by 1. Okay? Because it doesn't matter which way that I do that. Alright, so that is all for our properties. And I'm going to go ahead and do the videos for PEMDAS, but you really are not going to have to do that until tomorrow night's when you're really going to need it. So, but go ahead and work through them so you'll know how to do it if you want to.